I just get on Google one day and go, how can I make NFL money outside the NFL? Real estate popped up first.
Really? That's what
Yes,
it said?
really. It said it was actually wholesaling real estate to be exact. So honestly, I tell people all the time, if it was stocks, if it was Bitcoin at the time, if it was something else, I probably would have veered to that. But I had an understanding of real estate and building wealth, so I just went full in and got my license, realized that retail is different than wholesale. And then started with that last company, worked my way up. And then I felt that there was a need in Kansas City to sell investment properties. And there's a way to do it where we could basically never fail.
Brace yourself for a wild ride into the unexpected. This ain't your typical success show. I'm here talking to real folks who've been through it all, skipping the fancy business talk for authentic stories. We're diving into childhood dreams, teenage escapades, and everything in between. No scripts, just the stories that truly mold success. Each episode takes you on a journey through those breakthrough moments that paved their way. No fluff, just genuine stories. So whether you're chasing dreams or just love a good story, buckle up for wisdom, laughs, and the unexpected. This is the Breakthrough Podcast, where success is a journey, not just some fancy destination. Don't miss out. Hit the subscribe button now and join our Breakthrough crew. I got some incredible stories to share, and you won't want to miss a single one. Today's guest has a story that really made me pause. He's been through a lot, and what he's built on the other side is nothing short of powerful. He's a mentor, a community leader, and someone who's taken the hard road and used it to create real purpose. What really stood out to me is how he turned his experience into something bigger. He didn't just try to get by, he got to work. He stacked skills, learned the real estate game, and started building not just properties, but stability, ownership, and the opportunity for others coming up behind him. He's a builder in every sense of the word, of homes, of people, of trust. In this conversation, we will talk about transformation, accountability, and what it really looks like to come back to yourself. This one's real. Let's get into it. Corey,
Stephen,
what's
hello.
happening, man?
Oh, another day in paradise here in Kansas City, man. Selling real estate.
I love it. I love that I got you on too. This is cool.
Yeah, I'm happy to be on. Man,
Yeah.
that first introduction through Madeline, it was a really great call that day.
Yeah, it was. And it was funny. We got done and I called my assistant. I said, let's get Corey on. He's cool. I want to hear his story. I want to hear his background, what's going on, and where he came from and everything. So I appreciate you accepting and jumping on. I think we have a lot of topics we can talk about, especially out
Yes.
in Kansas City. I'm curious to understand, first and foremost, how did you go from the last company into what you do now, as far as running a brokerage and doing wholesaling?
Absolutely. And I appreciate you guys having me on as well. So, went from the last company over to RMS and I really started in 2021. I had got my license back in 2018, but I really wanted to jump into wholesaling. Just a college kid graduating, went to school to play football, Division I scholarship, quickly realized I wasn't going to the NFL, but you got to go get a job and make money. And as I wouldn't say dumb jock brain, football brain, but I just get on Google one day and go, how can I make NFL money outside the NFL? Real estate popped up first.
Really? That's what
Yes,
it said?
really. It said it was actually wholesaling real estate to be exact. So
That's
honestly,
wild.
I tell people all the time, if it was stocks, if it was Bitcoin at the time, if it was something else, I probably would have veered to that. But I had an understanding of real estate and building wealth, so I just went full in and got my license, realized that retail is different than wholesale. And then started with that last company, worked my way up. And then I felt that there was a need in Kansas City to sell investment properties. And there's a way to do it where we could basically never fail. And I should use that lightly. Anyone could fail, but we're a small town, big city, small town feel. So everyone knows everybody. If you rub someone the wrong way, that person tells 5 or 10 other people, you could be out of business within a month. And there was a way that we could capture those investors and that clientele and still create a favorable experience for the customer. And when Trey Watson, our founder and CEO, came to me, at first, Stephen, I was very hesitant. I had built a good book of business at the last company, was doing a lot of business here in the city. But when I realized that I have an opportunity to teach, to mentor, and can make money while doing it, I felt, it's time to make this transition and almost level up and become a broker or manager and build this thing from the ground up. So they approached me maybe I say 12 months before I even accepted it. And then we got the ground going really quickly. He flew out here. We found some office spaces. Actually, the last space we looked at, we ended up getting beautiful, like 5,000 square foot office, downtown Kansas City, centralized location for investors, for sellers to come in, and the agents, more importantly. And we just took off. Didn't really see a lot of success in the beginning. Obviously, building this thing out. We're only 7 months old anyway, but we're finally having our breakthrough month currently. And it's been very special to see the people come in, the investors, the love and how receptive the market has been to us has been great. And I just plan to capitalize on that month after month, year after year.
Yeah. So this would be a great time to explain even how I met you guys. So I'm mentoring students, helping students buy their first investment property out of state. And I took on a new student and he's looking in Kansas City. So I started to re-engage into some of the Facebook groups because I had kind of pulled away from Kansas City for, I would say, the last year and a half because I'm focused in another market. And, I'm going through Facebook and I'm starting to kind of look at things. And I see Madeline do a post on a property. It catches my attention. I see the numbers, they make sense. Then I start going down that rabbit hole. I do Google Maps. I start looking through. I go and I look at Rent-A-Meter. I look at the rents and I'm just looking at them. I'm like, hey, this is a good deal. And the reason that kind of caught my attention all the way around was there's been a long period of time in Kansas City that wholesalers just did not know how to underwrite a deal, period, in the story. And then they would pitch these deals out onto Facebook and try to explain, here's the ARV and this is, the cost of rehab. And they're way off. And it was just going time and time again. And then I just kind of got burned out on it. Okay. I'm like, something's going on. Sellers are, they're not budging on their pricing and wholesalers are not getting these properties under contract correctly. It's just like they're just putting them under contract and hoping for the best or hoping that an investor will be silly enough to buy this terrible deal. That's what I was seeing. That was just me, on the outside. So Madeline sends it over and I do a quick DM to her. Boom. She responds like within an hour. I was like, oh, and I'm watching, the way she's talking. And then, the next day it's like the follow-up. I'm like, kind of caught me off guard. It's like, wait, this is not how it usually is. And I'm like, there's a level of professionalism and, come to find out, Madeline's newer at this.
Mhm. Brand new.
Brand
No experience at all.
Brand new, no experience. She could talk the talk. I mean, she's learning as well. And she's learning probably having conversations with more investors, on the phone and going through this. But the level of communication was just top notch. And it almost re-engaged me. Like I told David, I said, hey, I think I have a company that we can use. I think this is the company. And he's like, why? I'm like, well, because they communicate well. The first couple deals they've been underwriting these deals correctly. These make sense. They're putting the right information in there. And he's like, okay, and so I get her on the phone and we start talking. She's like, oh, I'm kind of newer and I'm learning. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to go a long way. I'm like, and I hope that you're buying your own investment properties at some point, especially if you're living in Kansas City. There's no excuse that you shouldn't be building out your portfolio because
Right.
you have them there. They're right in your backyard. So that really was the start of it. Then we got on a call with you and then it went even a little bit further. You're well-spoken and good conversation there. And it's great to see that you're doing this the right way, because at the end of the day, doing it the right way, you're just going to have long-term relationships. Madeline's like, are you guys still looking to buy? Yeah, we are. I'm not looking anywhere else. I told her that. I don't have the bandwidth to. Just why do I need that? If I can just have one company that can bring me deals, from my students or from me down the road. Because now I even told David, heck, I might get back into it.
It's good right now.
If I got a good deal, I'll jump back in. But there, what I'm saying? There was a point when the deals were not good. There was a level of professionalism that was not there. That makes
Absolutely. I
sense.
think that makes a lot of sense, Stephen. And I think that ties back into that customer experience. And notice I say customer, not client. We're
Mm.
licensed agents. I'm a broker. She's a licensed agent, but we don't represent you guys. So we're still providing that, I wouldn't even say fiduciary, but we're providing that the obligations of the material facts. We have the packet lined up with the pictures and the comps and the description of the property. We're trying to create a scenario or an experience that, hey, within 15, 20 minutes, I can make a decision if I want to buy this house. And then all I need to do is get eyes on it to confirm the scope of work and the rehab. But if I can do all that legwork up front, just like you said, you don't have the bandwidth to get contractors out there to underwrite your own deals sometimes. You have 50 million things going on. A lot of our investors are wealthy individuals that have a lot of other priorities. They do this as a side hustle, or, some of them, it's their main thing. So I'm always like, how can I become, or how can we become the one-stop shop for all real estate resources here in Kansas City? Oh, I need a lender. I have a lender. Oh, I need contractors. I have
Yes.
contractors.
Yeah.
All encompassing, and that's what we're trying to build, throughout the years.
Yeah, that took a little bit of the burden off. And not this burden. I mean, I have contractors, lenders. We talk to your lenders as well because they have some. I'm like, well, let's call them all. And at the end of the day, David, when you build out your team, who you like and trust goes a long way. Like if you're going to have long-term relations with people. So why don't we talk to all three lenders and, figure out the ones that you like to use and then use them. So yeah, I guess let's do this. Let's back up and explain exactly what you do for investors, because I think sometimes people don't understand what wholesaling is and what that whole process looks like. Why don't we start from the beginning of like, what do you do in your business? And then what service are you providing for investors?
Absolutely. So what we actually do is we find distress inventory all throughout the Kansas City metro area, I say within a 40 to 50-mile radius of downtown. And we basically get those properties under contract with the seller or through other agent contacts or wholesalers here in Kansas City. And we sell those to our network of investors. So right now, I actually counted this today. We have 1,122 investors currently looking for houses in Kansas City. And
Hmm.
so we have right now about 9 available deals, and some of them are vacant, some of them are occupied. So we have these properties under contract, and they're usually, everyone wants a good deal. There's distressed properties, but then there's distressed people. So I look at it from both sides where we're helping sellers get out of tight situations. A lot of these properties, they're pre-foreclosures, they're probate inherited properties, tax properties, something that's a thorn in a seller's side, and they need to create cash right away. And we're closing these properties within 14 days. And right now, it's a very competitive market. So investors are confiding with each other day in, day out for the best properties, the best deals, so to speak. Now, we can have an entire podcast on what is a deal, an hour long talk about that, but usually it's in that 70 to 75% of ARV range. If your listeners understand that, being all in for 75% of the ARV yields a 25% return or 30% return, whatever, the maths out to. But we're sending those deals out, 10, 15 of those a week, opportunities for people to create wealth and income for themselves in this country. And that's how I frame it up. When people ask me, what do you do? Yeah, I'm a broker, and that sounds very noble. But I tell people I help people build wealth through real estate in Kansas City.
How many people do you know in Kansas City? Like, do your friends and family members and coworkers, are they all investing in Kansas City as well?
So I have a couple of friends that do. Right now, one of my agents, she just bought her first flip 3 weeks ago.
Cool.
But no one in my immediate family, taught me this. My mom, dad, cousins, grandpa or grandma, no one. So just friends and coworkers. But I have a cousin that develops in Houston, but that's just about it.
So how did you first start then? You knew your football career, you weren't going to the NFL, so then you Googled, saw real estate. Then what was your next step? Like, what are your action steps that you took to get to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So at the time, there was this guru wholesale guy in 2018. Name was Jay Morrison. I don't know if I'm doing a good or bad thing by mentioning his name, but at the time, another African American male in real estate down in Atlanta, and he was just all about wholesaling. So me, like, I was the guy that, I put it all on black. I probably had less than $300 in my bank account, and his course was 400. I think I had to borrow the extra $100 to buy the
Mm,
course
love it.
to learn what he was trying to teach us. And that's when I understood, it was always no credit, no money down. So I didn't have any money. My credit was, I didn't have no credit either. So I'm like, how can we do this? Right? Like, it almost sounds far fetched. And I just ingratiated myself and thrust myself into the knowledge and started to pick up on the lingo and an ARV and a rehab and max allowable offer and things of that nature. I just started to pick up on, but I never fully dove into the actual work. So pulling lists and cold calling sellers and that nature. I had a buddy in town and he was opening up his own brokerage. And he was like, hey, man, if you want to get your real estate license, like, I have a spot for you. So at that time, I thought that it's just real estate, right? Like retail and wholesale are two and two together. I quickly found out within a month that it's the same coin, but opposite sides, two
Correct.
different worlds.
Yeah.
And so I was really focused on, I was like, hey, I want to wholesale. This is what I want to do. But at the time, they had certain things. We had buyers, new buyer client. You kind of start with a buyer agent when you're a new agent anyway, that we had to help. And so I'm going out to houses on Sundays. I love my Kansas City Chiefs. And, I'm at open houses when the Chiefs are playing, and it just wasn't fulfilling my soul. It wasn't as fast paced as I would like it to be, but I was fortunate enough to do two retail transactions. A lead came in, went to another brokerage. This was a retired FBI cop in Kansas City and a retired like tech. The wife was retired in tech sales or something. And they had a penthouse downtown Kansas City. And they were an older couple, and I'm a young, new, green agent. And they trusted me to sell their penthouse. So we sold that for, I believe, 350,000. And then they had to buy another house. So they used me on them purchasing their property, and it was a new build in the Northlands, if you're familiar, for
Mhm.
365,000.
Oh, cool.
So my first two transactions in real estate, it was like 765,000 of, volume. And I'm like, oh wow, this is awesome. And got my first check and I was like, okay, this is awesome. But to be honest with you, when that transaction closed, it was also during the COVID scare. And so I had a W-2 job, and so I would go to my W-2, and if they're listening to this, they probably get mad at me, but I would, on lunch break, I would come to work, maybe something more casual, and on lunch break, I'd go in my car, put on my slacks, put on my nice shirt, and go walk houses with people or go to closings. And I would come back and unchange and go back and like, hey, everything's good. Yeah, I had a long lunch, man. I know. Sorry I'm late. And I did that for about 6, 7 months. And 2021 happened, real estate. I mean, every market probably went really crazy in 2021. Everyone panic sold, people panic bought. Interest rates were all time low. And all my buddies in real estate at the time were like, Corey, you need to get in on this, man. It's fun. So that was in 2021. I quit that job. About 5 months went by, took another job, a sales job where I'm very grateful for it, but it didn't really materialize anything. And then a high school friend of mine, actually, shout out Marissa Moore. She worked at the previous company, and I just said, well, I already have a license. It's inactive, but I just got to take a course, pay $50, and I'm back active again. And that was a very smooth transition. And the rest is history. Got into full 100% wholesale real estate. July 2021.
So that's interesting too, because you kind of got in when it was pretty wild, but everything was fun. Interest rates were low. I know as an investor back then, you could have been fired 3 contractors and went over budget and over time and still did good. It was like
That's awesome.
and I try to tell, my new students that don't expect that. Like, time is money, you know?
Right.
You do fire
Right.
your contractor, when they are not doing something correct after, like, 10 days, they're out. Like, if they're not
Right.
moving, you gotta get them out quick.
I agree.
Yeah, back then, it was like and trust is earned.
Yep.
Trust is earned, and that's, another thing, in especially dealing with wholesalers is a different group of people in there.
Yes. It's all
Yeah.
about the psychology. I talk a lot to
Yeah.
my team about the psychology of an investor, psychology of a seller, and the sellers that we work with. And you mentioned that earlier on that there's a lot of people that were probably like me in 2018 that there's some flashy YouTube guy saying no credit, no money. And we're, the state of the economy now, a lot of people are stressed out. They're trying to find other ways to supplement their income. I just got off the phone with my cousin last week, and he's like, "I need to find ways to make more money. Talk to me about your company and the flips you guys are selling, right?" And I'm like, "Hold the break. Everyone, it's fun. You can do it, but you got to know what you're getting yourself into." With some wholesalers, there's a lot of wholesalers, let me first say, that are really great to work with. They understand the integrity of real estate and there's another person involved. But most wholesalers, they only care about that assignment fee. Hey, I'm making
Yeah.
30 grand on this house. I don't care. I called it, a 4 bed, 3 bed. It's a 2 bed, 1 bed. I don't
Yes.
care. You pay the price, right?
See this all the time. So
You see it all the time, and we're not perfect over here at Artemis, but the thing is that fiduciary obligation, we try to uphold that, and that's disclosing material facts. If it's a 2 bed, 1 bed, we're going to run it as a 2 bed, 1 bed. We're going to try to be as accurate as we can on that rehab scope of work. None of us are licensed contractors, but I flipped a couple properties. A lot of these guys have done a lot of deals. At some point, a 3 bed, 2 bath, 2 car garage, cosmetic only is going to be in this range.
yeah,
You just
give or
know that
take.
at some point.
Yeah.
Right. And so we explain that to the investors. At the end of the day, here's the ARV, here's the purchase price. Does this make sense in your buy box? And with our deals, because this is what we do 24/7, a lot of urgency is at play because, hey, you're an investor, Steven, but there's three other people ready to buy this house. And a lot of people just don't want to lose the deal. They'll kind of deal with, okay, maybe I didn't vet the deal as properly, but it's good enough from the information that I provided that I'll buy it, sight unseen, or I'll send a contractor out there and I'll go walk it the next day. And we can still get those deals done. So,
Yeah, and that's something I had explained to David because there was a deal that I really liked, and I had reached out to Madeline. I'm like, "Okay, let's grab this one." I think it was in Independence. It was a corner lot, 3-1, and the first thing I looked at, I liked the location of it. I liked the way the house looked from the exterior. I was counting all the windows. Okay, it doesn't have a ton of windows, but the bigger thing was that it didn't have a lot of trees close to the house. And it's Independence, and you know what I'm talking about. You get these houses that they got a bunch of trees, and trees equal money to me.
yep,
It's simple as that.
100%.
It's either a branch hitting the house or I gotta prune a bunch of things, cut branches, and that will just suck up your cash flow.
And then the roots,
And the
get it, dig
roots.
into the foundation and push the foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, all kinds of things. So I saw no trees and I go, okay, this is the one. And I'm trying to get a hold of David. I underwrite it for him. And I go, okay, we got to go for this one. And then we missed it like by an hour, by an hour. So then I had to tell David, like, hey, look, on your lunch, like you need to be looking at deals, analyzing deals, making emails, calls, whatever you got to do. Because the more you do it, the more you'll systemize how you look at things and how to know how to move quick on things. Like you'll just go step, 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 make a couple calls, call your contractor. Okay, you're going to do this. You got to get your deposit in, like lock it up, sign that contract, get going, then figure it out. Like, yeah, you have to. And I've made some mistakes on acting fast, not doing a sewer scope, just kind of baking it into like, okay, if I have to replace it, and it turns out to be something way worse than I anticipated. But overall, once the deal was done and we rehabbed and stabilized it, it all worked out. But, it did bite me at that point when I'm first looking at it, but That's investing. That's
It's
investing.
investing. I get terrified selling sight unseen sometimes, especially here in Kansas City where there's basements and you can have a 2025 build next to an 1890 build here in the
Yeah.
same neighborhood. And so I think that's like a little cog in the system, a flaw where a lot of people want to do their due diligence. Like, hey, I need to do an inspection. I need to do a sewer scope. And the way we train the agents, the way I train them is like they are more than able to do an inspection, to do a scope. But then there might be that investor out there that's like, I know what I'm doing. I'll buy it right
Yeah.
away. And that experience can rub someone the wrong way. I didn't have time to do this. And it's like, I know, but sometimes on this side of the coin is what you won't do, another investor will.
Will. Yeah.
And we sell to the highest bidders kind of mentality where out of all the houses that we buy, we only need one investor or one entity, whatever. And there's all millions of people in America, billions of people in the world. We sell to people in South Korea. I think I mentioned last time I spoke to you.
Oh, that's cool. Super cool.
Yeah, well, he's American citizen, but he's stationed in South Korea. So it's daytime when it's nighttime here and vice versa. So that agent that works with him has to kind of be on that type of schedule because he invests part-time.
Mm.
He's defending our country and a base there. So it just it's funny because it's like that alone is like we just need one investor. It doesn't have to be a Kansas City local. It could be an out-of-state person that, hey, I've been getting beat out on these $1 million properties in California. You're telling me I can buy a 3-bed, 2-bath for $60K that needs 25 grand in work and it'll rent for $1,200? That is a very true deal in Kansas City, and I think Kansas City we're in our Renaissance era right now. So I think it's a gold mine.
I agree with you on
Everyone
that.
and awesome, I appreciate
I
that. I
agree with
think
that. I agree with that. Back when I started investing out in Kansas City, I was at Bigger Pockets conference and I got in a contract on my first property in Detroit. And then I was talking to this guy that was an agent in Kansas City through Instagram. And he had a deal like, hey, I got a deal, I want you to look at it. And so I just jumped on a plane and flew to Kansas City from the conference. And I got on the
nice.
ground and I just got a rental car and I just cruised all the neighborhoods. I saw all the development going on in different locations, went to the plaza, went to all these different places. You got the football team. I just could see lots of
Uh-huh.
jobs. You knew things were growing and there was a lot of room to grow. A lot of
A
room to
lot of
grow.
room.
A lot of room
Mhm.
to grow. And you get into these neighborhoods, like for instance, like Blue Hills, we were going in there and literally just transforming blocks because we'd buy, a couple deals. Then we knew the ARV and then we'd go to the next block and then we're just creating this whole little section of our own little properties. And it was just working really well. And I just thought I never went to Detroit, but Detroit was way bigger beast. That's
Mhm.
something and just wasn't finding the right group of people. And it's all about your team. So
Yep,
out
yep.
there, it was like the Wild West. So Kansas City. And then I'd always step back when I flew home and I was getting deals and everything was working out great. We had our issues, of course, but I was like, why aren't more investors talking about Kansas City? Like what, you know what I mean? What am I missing? You know what I mean? And then you hear like Brandon Turner start talking about, then people start doing it, but it was already like 4 years in at this point. I'm like, okay, cool. Like it's all good. And there's still a ton of room to grow out there. There's just a lot of, distressed homes.
Yep.
That
A
that is
lot of
that's
distressed
really what it
homes.
comes down to. There's just a lot of distressed homes.
Gentrification going on too. Kinda like you were saying about Blue Hills. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's happening, right? In a lot of those locations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned Blue Hills, probably one of my top investors, they own about 250, 300 doors in Blue Hills currently.
Oh, really?
And
That's crazy.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
like then they probably started investing 10 years after you were. So even 10 years down the road, Blue Hills was still lucrative. And I just think it's awesome to see, me being a born and raised here, riding down Truce, seeing how ran down it was maybe, 15, 20 years ago, and now seeing what it looks like today. It's like, okay, what other pockets are going to be there and how can I get ahead of that curve and play that long game for the next 20 years, you know?
Yeah, and then it was going south from Blue Hills, Marlboro Heights, that area
Right.
started becoming
Mm.
hot, right? But
Yep, yep.
the only thing I knew never to do was go east of 71.
Yeah. And we still are like, "Oh, it's an East of 71 deal. We gotta be conservative." Yeah.
I
It's
told that
still
to
like that today.
yeah, I told that to David. I'm all, you can look at whatever you want. We bought one property east of 71, and it was the biggest nightmare we've ever gone
Mm,
through. No, I'm sorry.
that's tough.
Probably the second. I mean, just so many break-ins and just so much nonsense and just bad tenant pull. It was really hard.
Yep.
Yeah, it was really hard. So I'm curious about something. What were your jobs as a kid? What kind of jobs did you have as a kid?
Jobs as a kid, that's a great question. You know, honestly, Steven, I was always an athlete. So I would mow my grandpa's lawn from time to time, but we were so busy with sports because I played basketball and football that was my job. My parents did a really good job of instilling hope and, you know, you guys are going to make it. They pour a lot into me and my younger brother to manifest our, you know, professional athletic careers.
Mhm.
It just didn't work out that way. And I look back at it and go, there are a lot of time that I spent, you know, on a football field or basketball court that I could have spent at jobs or apprenticeships or something like that. But we just went full tilt into sports, and I was fortunate enough to get a full ride scholarship out of that to University of South Dakota. My brother didn't go play basketball out of college, which is totally fine. But we were just so into sports. But I will say this though, in itself, the trials and tribulations of being an athlete, growing up 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, falling down, getting back up, being ultra competitive, have definitely shaped who I am as a business person, as a manager, as a broker, as a professional at 30 years old. And you know, I might not have that lemonade stand, but I had grit and you know, I had the intangibles that you need to succeed in entrepreneurship that I look back at and go, okay, thank you. Like life is so funny sometimes. So I always tell people life is like this. It's not linear,
Ne
you know,
never.
never linear. It comes full circle. What the things that I've dealt with at 12 and 15 years old, I see them pop up at 30 and I go, okay, I've been here before. We're not going to freak out. We're going to handle it, analyze, and execute. So, you know, I think I sold candy bars for the school at a
Mhm.
certain point of time, door to door, but other outside of mowing lawns for people, nothing really concrete with a job.
I did the lawn thing. I did lawn.
Yep.
Yeah. And I remember it was my mom and dad's, good friend, and so I'd mow her lawn, and then I noticed across the street, this kid was, like, mowing the lawns as well, but he had 2 of them, and I went over to the neighbor with, like, a flyer and, like, undercut his prices and took over
Yeah.
his lawn, and then I look back, it's kind of funny, and then I had my buddy, you know, we had BMX bikes, and so we had the little hooks
Mhm.
on the backs of the pegs, so I would hold the lawnmower, and he would be the one that would ride me over to these places to do the lawns, right? It
Oh,
was
that's
just so
awesome.
funny. Yeah. So one thing that you said that sports was your job, but sports also teach you a lot of different things. You know, like you said, the ups and downs, getting back up when something's not going correct. The consistency is a big part, right?
Uh-huh.
And all those things are traits that you really have to have being an entrepreneur
Absolutely.
because shit doesn't go right all the time. That is,
Uh-uh.
you are one day you're up, one day you're down, one day you're second guessing yourself. But at the end of the day, you know one thing is you got to keep going forward.
100%. I can't quit. Yeah, that's the biggest one.
I can't, I,
I'm too far in.
yeah, yeah, you're too far in. I say that too. I say that all the time. Like different things come up, and I'm like, well, too far into this now. Like I'm gonna keep
Right.
going for it.
Right, right. Eric Thomas, motivational speaker, he says, "Don't cry to give up, cry to keep going."
Yeah.
You know, I use that a lot because it's like I've gone through everything, and you bring up a great point. You know, I've gone through every emotion that anyone that's listening to this is probably going through right now, and I don't have a lot of secret sauce other than the stuff that you've already been learning from other podcasts or motivational videos from YouTube. It's just you just gotta keep going. And I think there's something in the keep goingness of things that you have like an aha light bulb moment and you go,
Yes.
"Oh, okay. That's all I had to do." But for me, into my adult later years after college, I would start something and I would give up right before that breakthrough, quote unquote. Like I even take that with the real estate. I decided to let my license lapse because I wanted my cushy W-2 job making 42 grand a year with benefits. And for me, that's was the stability. It was just I needed that in my life. But I wish I never did that because I didn't know what was on the other side of just pressing forward and pressing forward. And I've come a long way in the last 4 years, but I always think how further I would have been along had I just stayed with the license full time instead of do the part-time deal back and forth, back and forth. But everything happens for a reason. And I'm grateful for the journey that I've been on so far.
Yeah, and you're always adding to the book.
Always.
I have friends that reach out and ask me questions and stuff like, "How did you get this far?" I'm like, "I how did I get this far?" Well, it's been 20 years.
Yep.
20 years. Like, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and didn't even buy my first investment property for, like, 10 years after that. Like, it
Right.
was crazy. You know what I mean? Like, you think about that. That's what always on my mind too. And then I've always said that I'm really great at doing. I'm really great at doing. I feel like I'm really great at doing, but a master at none. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm always because I'm always wearing so many different hats and going saying basically what we just talked about. That I'm like, I'm in it now. Like, oh gosh, what am I gonna do? I'm always
Mhm.
figuring it out. I've never felt like I've had it like shit, I got this mastered. I got this shit dialed in. Never, ever. And I almost feel like I like it that way better.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because it almost feels like it's a constant movement of a little bit of refinement over time. Where you do see you can reflect back is when you look in like a decade. Go back a decade and look where you were. And
Right.
then you might not think you're doing much. You might be going forward, might be going back. But then if you look over a decade, you go, okay, yeah, I've really put some good work in here. This is cool. But that doesn't mean you ease the gas.
Right.
It's a
I
marathon
s
to the finish.
It's a marathon to the finish, and that is kinda what you took the words out of my mouth. It's a marathon, not a sprint,
Yeah.
and, we have a pretty young team, and, I'm hiring people straight out of college, and they just have that instant gratification, microwave, like, they want it right now, and I'm like, "Hey, you need to walk 100 houses before you even know what you're even getting yourself into with the type of houses that we deal with. And then you carry that over a 10-year period or a 20-year period like yourself, you're going to know a lot more than you did 20 years ago, 10 years ago. But still, I bet even for you, like you're learning something new in your own business with a different market or, development, stuff like that. So I always say that the day you think you know everything is almost like the day that you fail or the day that everything goes down the drain
You quit.
because
You
you
quit.
quit.
You quit. That's the
And
big
I'm
one.
constantly refining that toolbox. Like I know there's deficiencies in my practice, and I'm like, okay, I love my strengths. I need to make sure I'm gonna have weaknesses. You can outsource your weaknesses, right?
Yes.
Or, I can
And there's
that's
nothing
kind
wrong
of
with
where I'm
that. Some of
at.
the weaknesses
Mhm.
that you can outsource your weaknesses because there could be things that you're just like if I told you, Corey, I'm going to start doing QuickBooks and doing all that, that I've, gone off the deep end. It ain't happening, buddy.
It ain't
It's
happening.
not.
Yeah.
Ah, gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But yeah, we focus, I try to focus on the strengths, work on the weaknesses, but every day I'm like, what does the day in real estate have to offer for me? But what can I give back to it? And I'm constantly learning and you become like a beacon of information for the people around you. People trust you more. And you're like, oh wow, that sounded good, but I have no idea what I just said, but
Yeah,
it
that's
sounded
cool.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a reason why you did say it. That person needed it.
They needed it, and it's like, I don't know everything, but I know a little bit, and I'm speaking from experience, and that's the best thing as well. You say you are a doer, I say you're a guru, not a guru, right? So, I would
I hate
never
that
tell
word.
you to do
I hate that word. Ah,
right.
damn.
What, guru?
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
it rubs me the wrong way. You know, that really held that the guru part because someone's like, "Hey, you should create a course or you should mentor people," you know, and then I would correlate it with like people I would see on like YouTube with like a Lamborghini in the background. I'm like, dude, I don't want to be even close to that. In a store, I do not want to be part of that. Like it, but then it was funny because I think then mentoring organically happened because people were coming to me asking for help
Right.
and I would take them on. And then I'd take on a couple more and then it organically, and then it was K because it was never forced.
Right.
It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to do this so that I can make money so that I can flaunt it online. And I'm not taking away people that do that, you know,
Right.
it doesn't, that's their thing. But to me, just, I get, I don't know. It's not
Well,
me.
it's kind of I always talk about it here in Kansas City. It's like we have a lot of people here that do the same thing, and you think they're doing a lot of good business. 'Cause they post a lot on social media and everything, but then you dive deeper into it, and it's like, oh yeah, you're not doing that, and that's fine. I'm never gonna hate on anyone's hustle, but there's a difference between projecting an image and then like deception. Right? And so,
Correct. Yes.
we're not
Mm.
trying to deceive anyone. Like, I always say, I don't need to prove anything to you. Just come hang out with me for a day and, see how I speak to my team or come to the houses I'm working on and stuff like that. Like, all this was built organically and I started in the same place as you, right? Or, whoever I'm talking to. I'll be honest, I'm very humble about my beginning. I was in my mom's basement when I first started to get into wholesale real estate. And I have no shame in that. I've been able to work myself up and I'm very fortunate, very blessed. But I started in the same areas mentally, physically as a lot of people that I come in contact with. And they're like, well, you're just special. You have these things. Like, no, I don't. Like, if they put my brain on the same scan as your brain, is probably going to have the same stuff in there. But there's just a certain level of willpower and meaning what I say and being true to myself that when I say I want these things, I want a nice house, I want a nice girlfriend, a nice wife, have a family. Okay, but what are you willing to get those things? What are you willing to give up to get those things? Because they don't happen overnight. And I bet your story is like that. Like it's a long journey, but you worked at it and you were intentional that you were going to change your life and you were going to do these things. And now look, like, isn't rocket science, but it's just determination and grit. And I think a lot of people try to search for answers outside of themselves. And I'm just big
That's
on
a big
turn
one.
inward. Right.
Yes.
Turn it inward. Look at the person in the mirror and go, okay, am I who I say I am? And am I working towards the things that I say I want to work towards? I bet
Yes.
a lot of people could get on track if they answer those two questions.
Those are the big ones. I was listening to this motivational speaker on like Instagram, and he was, saying in order to kind of move forward and really be the best version of you, you really have to identify what went wrong in your childhood and to forget that and understand that whoever was involved in that part, you have to let them go because that was the
Uh,
past. And you have to identify that and then move through that in order to really shed that out of your thought process.
uh,
And man, that one hit home.
Powerful.
Yeah, that was good. And that takes, it's hard to do in a lot of ways. I think a lot of things happen in your childhood and that trauma just kind of comes up. And it always comes up when you're starting to kind of go through a little bit of a breakthrough. There's something
Hmm.
change in your life. And then that self-doubt creeps back in and tells you're not worth it, that you don't deserve to go down this path, even though you don't need permission.
Right. You don't. You do not.
It's like, you need no permission. You don't,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, we're all going to get older. And the last thing I want to do is get older and be bitter about the shit that I thought I wanted to do, was thinking about what I want to do, but never did.
Ooh, that's powerful.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
don't want to have that. I don't want to go through that. I know that's projecting into the future, but
Mhm.
it's just something that I just want to be back, when that day comes down the road, that I can reflect back and go, yes, I did some cool shit.
I did some cool stuff and I
Had some
might have
fun.
failed, sucked at some things, but I did it. And
And then
that's all
pass
that
that
matters.
wisdom,
Yep.
and then pass it to whoever wants to listen.
Yes, that's so awesome. I've dealt with that myself just from things in my childhood. My parents divorced when I was very young, and I kind of had to go from just normal brother to big brother to parent for my younger brother because they were fighting each other through the courts, and we still had to go to school and go to extracurriculum activities. And when two parents split at that young of an age, as kids, you just think it's your fault and but you think you did something wrong. And I love my parents to death. I still have them around, but they even have admitted that they could have handled it a lot better. And then growing up, my 20s, and now I'm 30, and I can still see that little 12-year-old looking for validation, and I struggle with it.
That's another thing that guy said.
That's crazy. Yeah, I got to get that
Yeah,
that
I'll send
podcast.
it to you. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna he said that too. And it's so true because you know what happens when you're older, when shit ain't going right or you're thinking you're going down something, you revert back to that.
Yep.
You revert back to that moment. And it's just, it's how our brains are wired.
Mhm.
We're not special in that. Everybody goes through it. Just some people learn how to deal with it differently.
Mhm.
Some are overachievers, some are underachievers, some get stuck in this. We're all figuring it. We're fucking humans
Yep. Yep.
at the end of the day. I don't give a shit who's doing what in the world and how they're doing it, how much money and whatever the case may be. We're all humans at the end of the day. It's simple as that.
Yep.
It's simple as that. They're all going through. I can tell you. I know that Jeff Bezos got a lot of money and he's got a hot girlfriend, whatever the case, and a yacht. But I can tell you that guy goes through some shit too in his brain.
100%. 100%. And that's the
He just
beauty
does
of
it
it.
on a yacht.
Yep. Super yacht and in space.
Yeah, in space. Kinda.
Kinda semi space.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Is
we don't
it?
even know. Is the footage altered? Yeah, I don't
We
know.
don't know.
But yeah, man, like that is it though. Like I'm trying to self-validate myself, and I think that I fall in the aspect of the overachiever, where it's like I need to prove that I'm worthy. So I need the accolades and I need the status. But like, is that really what I'm doing it for? Now, personally, that's not it, but that's just a thought process, right?
That makes
It's
sense.
like
I
it
understand
just
that.
makes sense. Like I had to go Division 1. I couldn't go Division 2. I remember my mom was like, "Look at these cards." I'm like, "No, I'm Division 1 only." And at the time, I'm like, "Why was I so self-centered?" I'm 18, I'm young, but it was a status thing. Like I needed to be top of the top, best with the best. And then after college, oh well, I'm not the football player anymore. Now I'm just Corey, the guy, like the guy that was
Mm.
good at football at one point, but football is not going to pay your bills today. And I felt like after that, I was just trying to find that guy again, that top dog, that top athlete, but in a different space. And what I say, well, it's 7 years later, and I don't even think I'm the guy. I'm 30 years old. I feel like I don't know anything, Steven. I'm learning. I feel like I get value from guys like you and other people to try to build me up so that I know that I'm not going to fall flat on my face. But I think we've done some really cool stuff over the past couple of years, and now we're set up to help more people, more agents, more sellers, more investors, and the sky's the limit now. We just got to push through it.
What do you see down the road?
For the company or
Business.
just in general?
Business.
Business? Yeah. I mean, I wanna grow my office. Right now, we have 12 agents. I wanna get to 20 agents in this office. We just did 30 units, but I think we can get to 30, like 40, 50 units, $500,000 in volume, and that's in assignment fees. But get to a place where when you think about investment real estate in Kansas City, ARM is just the first, you know, company that you think of. And like I said, the only way we're going to get to those numbers is by doing good business now. And so, we don't need to make 40K every house. We don't even do that now. We'll take a smaller fee for the relationship and just create that reoccurring business over and over again. So, for the company or for the office, getting to 35 to 40 sold units every month is really big. And I'm not really big on the volume piece because that just comes with it. But if we're doing 40 transactions every month in Kansas City, I mean, people are going to know who we are. And as long as we're doing it in a professional manner, I think that we can kind of take over a lot of the market share of off market properties
Mm.
because there's a lot of competition right now. And I kind of, I respect those guys, and we work with a lot of those people, but I would love to become the dominant player, the apex predator, so to speak, in Kansas City. No matter where you are in the world, when you're looking in KC, you're calling us first before you call those other guys.
What about in your personal life? Any goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm about to be a new dad here in August.
All right. Oh, in
To
August
a
too?
In August, yeah, that's
Cool.
coming up on us. A little new baby girl. Me and my girlfriend are very excited. So with that, I want to get to, at least in my career, I've always said I want to own 20 properties free and clear. I don't know why, like the 20 number comes from that cash flow.
Hmm.
It's like a $10,000 passive cash flow amount. Don't know how we're going to get there. Might be some Airbnbs in there, but I would love to get to that. But right now, I'm just flipping. So I want to get some buying homes. I'm on a contract on a duplex right now. I would love to do 10 to 15 more projects before the end of the year and then really ramp up next year from a personal side. Just I have a partner, so 20 to 50 units by the end of next year. And then kind of seeing how the landscape is after that. I don't know where the economy is going to take us. So much uncertainty right now, tariffs. It's all, there's someone's making money in it, and then we just got to figure out where they're making it. But getting to a level where we're flipping, we're holding on to some properties, and we feel good about our active income, obviously with the brokerage, but then we have the passive, and we're controlling that. And like I said, I still feel like I'm young, Steven. So I know I'm getting old, but
Wait, how old are you?
30.
Well, I will say that my second life started at 35.
Okay.
Got
So
clean
I'm
at
young.
35. Yeah. Like started day one. It's like 35, got clean, lost everything, built up
Again.
built
That's
up
awesome.
again. So you're good. You're
Thank you,
good.
man.
Yeah, you're totally good. But I think it's good to have that kind of sense of urgency as well in the back of your head to kind of keep you on track on things. I think that's important. One thing I definitely do, I'm
Mhm,
always kind of like trying to push the needle forward. But then I'm always wondering, like, what's all playing out with all of this too?
mhm,
What really satisfies me? What really, makes me happy? Those
mhm.
are big things too now. You know,
Yep.
that takes time to get to that point. Well, you're going to have your daughter. So
Mhm.
that is going to be one of the biggest, you're going to remember that day when she's born, like to forever.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're going to see
Super excited about
you're
that.
going to know what true love and being whooped is. You're done.
That's what I've been
You're
told,
done,
man.
dude. You're done.
Yep.
I hate to break
That's
it
what
to
I've
you.
been told.
Yeah.
I love it though, man. I love it because I feel like I've lived, I've seen some really cool stuff. I got a lot of cool stuff to see, but now, I don't look at it as a burden or anything. I just look at it as an opportunity for growth. And, I've never been a dad before. So I feel like she's going to help me with how I manage emotions in my office and manage emotions while negotiating with buyers and sellers. And I just feel like it's all encompassing. My number one quote of all time is, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Hmm.
So,
It's good.
I feel like if I could be a good manager, broker, I'm a therapist to some of my agents sometimes,
Yeah.
but I'll segue into being hopefully a good father down the road, to multiple kids, not just one if I'm fortunate enough. And it's all congruent, and the more people I can help, the more people I can teach, the knowledge that I've learned and just provide fruit for everyone. That's kind of what my end all be all to be is maybe a mentor one day, just
Yeah.
helping people.
Yeah. Teaching and mentoring. So, that's how I got into shooting content was, so I've been an agent since, like 2005, but I was
Mhm.
always really uncomfortable doing marketing. I felt like it was just really self-serving. Like it just show off, just listed, just sold, and just volume. It just, nah. But
Mhm.
then content, you can create value and then help other people and the masses. And
Mhm.
then the mentorship part is just really cool to watch somebody who doesn't know, anything about real estate, and not just about real estate, because, being an investor, there's so many other things that go along that, you want to get your fitness right. All the categories need to kind of start to line up. I think makes sense to me. But I have a lady who I've known since high school, and she lives in Arizona, really didn't have steady jobs, didn't make a lot of money. And she is now an investor. She owns a couple properties in St. Louis. She worked on a flip with me. She was an equity partner in it. She was a private lender on another scenario. And she told me a story of flying from Arizona to California. She met a lady on the plane, and the lady had lost her husband and he got this big chunk of money inherited and wants to invest. And she's telling me the story of how she's like helping this lady walk through some options of what she could do. And, here's how to go to Bigger Pockets, go to YouTube, find a mentor. And she's telling me all this. I'm like, you don't even realize it because you're in it now, how much you've grown, because you just got on a plane flight and talked to this lady for 2 hours and put her on a whole nother path, got her phone number. She texts you and says, thank you so much for that conversation. I want to stay in touch. Like, you now pushed her on the path, just as the same thing I told you in the beginning. When you get all this information from me that I'm giving you, pay it forward to somebody else down the road. Okay. And you'll know when it comes. You'll know when it comes. And she did. And that, I'm sorry, no money is gonna, make that feeling. That's the best feeling right there. I don't know how that turned out that way, but it really is it's special. It's good to
It's
see
very
things getting
special.
right. Yeah.
I get a lot like, I do the day-to-day hustle of trying to build a brokerage from the ground up and in a market that's highly competitive. And some of the agents, when they come to me and say, "Hey, Corey, like you've changed my life. Like whether I'm making money or not, you've changed the way I view money, you changed the way I view real estate, but more importantly, you changed the way I view myself and what I can and cannot do and what I can accomplish." That
Mhm.
to me is like, all right, let's go because you can now bring in 3 or 4 more people and teach them about the power of real estate and investing. Know that, hey, each one teach one kind of mentality. That I get the most fulfilled out of that myself, just with the agents that I work with here.
But you totally see where you're coming from and all that. And it's something that I come to understand right now is I had this coach who is Brandon Turner's coach. I was on his podcast,
Awesome.
right? Because I had coaching a few years back. So I got an email saying, okay, come on my podcast for 30 minutes. So I did. And he drilled me. He went deep. He like rooted stuff out. And one of the biggest things that came out of that, it was, I need a mentor. I don't have a mentor. I'm mentoring all these people and hopefully I'm trying to do a good job and pass all this knowledge, but it's like, what about me? You know what I mean? Like, I
Absolutely.
need one. And
Yeah. Who's
he
gonna
just
save
called
me
me
when
out,
I need saving?
dude, seriously. And then I was like, and they all kind of happened. It all happened at the same time. Here I'm really taking mentoring new students serious. He comes in the mix. Dude, you need to be right. Like, if you're not right on all the other things that are going on in your brain, how are you going to convey that over to everybody else? How's that energy going to flow through? He was so right on that. So right. Because there would be moments when I would be teaching or whatever you want to call it, that would, the little things would sneak back in. I'm like, oh
Uh,
shit, I can't do that. Like, I can't have those little voices sneaking back in. Like, I got to get that shit in check. you
right.
know? And once again, this all comes back to just evolving over time. You're
Right.
just always writing those chapters.
Right.
You're either working on it or you're not.
100%. It's
God,
literally cut and dry and black
it's
and white.
simple.
But I also think like that's awesome you shared that because it also, shows how self-aware you are in yourself. That you didn't have an arrogant, you know, viewpoint on it. Like, well, I'm teaching people, like I know like they're I'm getting results out of it. Like you had data to support that. Maybe you don't need a mentor, but deep down inside you knew like that self-awareness was key and you're always willing to learn, kind of what we talked about earlier.
Hmm.
And it probably helped enhance you as a human, but more important, like you as a mentor, as a coach as well in your business. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we went deep today. I appreciate that.
Yeah, me
We
too.
we
No,
talked
thank you.
about it before going on, and honestly, that's not how it always goes. And you can just
Uh-huh.
tell where it's going to go, and that it's totally fine. But I appreciate, you coming on and accepting the jump on my podcast today. And I look forward to
Absolutely.
working with you and your team moving forward. I'm super happy on the way you're approaching it all. And I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly when it comes to this. And so, keep doing what you're
Thank you.
doing and get prepared for that daughter of yours. She's
Every day.
she's in August. What's the range? I know.
August 28th.
Oh, okay. My daughter's
days,
August
yep.
5th.
Ah,
Yeah.
my mom's birthday is August 4th.
Really?
So,
Leo.
Leo. Yep. Good people.
It's all
good
about
people.
them. They're the center of the They're the center of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
Yeah, we late August.
Where can the audience find you?
Yeah, so Instagram at Corey K. That's Khorey. My parents had to make it hard to spell my first name. So Corey K. On Facebook, just Corey Kilgore. And on X, previously known as Twitter, it's also at Corey K.
And what's
Very
the name of your company again?
We're called Armis.
Okay. We'll put all that in the show notes too for anybody who's listening that wants to connect to a solid team to help you find investment properties in Kansas City. I highly should suggest you connect with Corey and his team.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you
buddy.
so much. And thank you for having me on as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you. All right, man. You have a great day. I'll talk to you real soon, actually.
All right. You too, man.
Take care.
See ya.
Thank you for tuning into our show, where we hope you found inspiration and gained valuable insights. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to stay updated on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and share it with others who might benefit from it. We appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more candid conversations and breakthrough moments in the future. Until next time, take care and keep exploring new ideas and strategies.